Hi, good day. I guess you are all doing well. How far? My friends in Nigeria will say, how far now? How far now? Um, I am hopeful that you are doing well. Okay, so let's go straight to the point. In my last video, I quite remember very well that I mentioned that I wanted to show you how I went about the data analysis. But before the data analysis will come in, how you go about one searching for the articles. Then after searching for the articles, you extract the important ones. And after extracting the important ones, you apply what we call the inclusion and exclusion criteria. And it will further reduce the papers until you get the most relevant papers. Then after getting the relevant papers, then you have to do some kind of what we call quality assessments or quality bias. It's like, yes, you have the relevant papers, but what is the extent of the quality of the papers that you have? I mean, you are trying to use for your work. And I mentioned that it's something that in our field, if you look at most literature reviews, we don't do. When it's understandable. The reason why it's understandable is that we don't normally have some of the things that are done in the medical field. So most of the studies I see in our field, we don't do, and it's acceptable. Our field, if you don't do quality assessment, it's acceptable. I'm not trying to say that if you don't do quality assessment, then your research paper is not good. It's acceptable that you can ignore the quality assessment, but it will give your work more credence. It will give it more. It's kind of like people will believe in your work. That trust will be in your work if you assess the quality of the papers that you are using to do your work. There's another thing that is also not common, once again. So learn this thing from me. Okay, but to begin with the whole methodological process, if you remember, I mentioned that we are using what we call what? Prisma, right? Okay, so I'll just take you through what this whole Prisma thing is about. Prisma. So what is Prisma? So briefly, let me just take you there and explain it to you. That's the methodological process that we are trying to use. So what does Prisma stand for? So Prisma stands for Preferred Reporting Items for Systematic Reviews and Meta-Analysis. It is an evidence-based minimum set of items for reporting in systematic reviews and meta-analysis. So I want to say that the Prisma itself is not a methodology, but rather it is a list of items. It is a list of items which you are required to report in your systematic reviews and meta-analysis. In other words, these list of items will give you some kind of guidelines as to the kind of things which are relevant we are expecting, we want to see in your systematic review. And Prisma is very popular in the social science and medical science field. Once again, I've been mentioning, and even recently I was able to get that it's also popular in the business field as well. Yeah. People use Prisma in engineering and construction management field, but it's not that popular. It's not that well known because of some of the things which are required in the Prisma list. Some of the terms and some of the things are more relevant, more applicable in the medical science space compared to the engineering space. Yeah, so it doesn't mean that nobody has used Prisma in the construction studies before. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that it's not that popular. We use our own. We have our own way of going about it, and you can affirm or disprove what I'm saying by checking some of the review papers which have been published in the engineering and construction management field. So just come to Google Scholar and just sample some papers on literature review which have been published in our department. You see that most of them didn't use Prisma, and even those that use Prisma too, so many things were not done. So that's it. Okay, let me keep on going. I've talked about this before in one of my previous videos. I explained to you as to why Prisma is more prevalent, is more used in the social science and medical science field compared to the engineering management field. So let me go straight to the point so that I don't waste too much time. Okay, so if you remember, the first thing to do, there's something I developed for someone, but I think it's almost a similar thing I've done. So I'm just using that to explain it to you. So the first thing that you have to do is you need to come up with what we call a protocol registration. That's what they did. But in our context, there's no need for any protocol registration. Okay. Yes. So in our case, this part is not important. The next thing is you can decide to set up your eligibility criteria. This eligibility criteria is also termed as the inclusion and exclusion criteria. Inclusion and exclusion criteria. So you have to set all these things before you start. And then also, we also have what we call a set strategy. I'm going to explain the two of them together. So in terms of our inclusion and exclusion criteria, this is what I did. So I decided that papers which were published only in English are the ones that we are using for our paper. And then also that paper must be a paper which is not a conference paper. It must not be a protocol paper. It must not be a conference abstract. Okay, all these things were taken out. And then the paper must also be a peer reviewed. Peer review means that because sometimes you see some of the journal articles and they are not properly peer reviewed. They are not properly peer reviewed. Yeah. So that's my then also inclusion in this study, which is also part, the reason why I decided to do the two of them together is also part of the research strategy. But I decided to also add what we call reports and institutional documents. So let me take you straight to the document I have. So I will share this with you, but I'll only share this document with you after you have finished your sections. So the two groups, once you are done, I'll share this document with you. This document contains all the relevant documents that are retrieved so far. Okay, so how did I get here? So one, I developed a strategy where I developed the research question. So what question are we using? So we are trying to look at the objective of this study, or I'll put it in a bigger context. The goal or the purpose of this study is to look at the ESG disclosure, also called reporting, in the construction industry. So here, under that, things that are likely, I'm hoping and I know that they are likely to come up are things like greenwashing behaviors, and then the impact of ESG disclosures on project performance. Then another thing too could be like the challenges. Why are construction organizations not implementing ESG scores, ESG criteria, ESG standards with respect to their project? So these are the things that I'm hopeful they are likely to come up once the paper is ready and we get to that point of analysis. Okay, so how did I get these papers? So last time, if you remember, I showed you the various search engines. Yeah, the search engine. And I retrieved papers from there. Okay, so I read papers from there. And when I got the papers, I was able to assemble almost about, there was 3,000 in the PubMed, and there was also 2,070 something in the ProQuest. So when you put all of them together, plus the few ones I got in the Scopus, the Google Scholar, and the EBSCO's host, as well as Web of Science, if you put all of them together, I was getting almost 6,000 plus documents. But when I applied the initial filters, which forms part of our eligibility criteria, which is the same as inclusion and exclusion criteria, apply things like English, the language being English, apply things like the year of publication, which in this context, we said, or I'm saying that we are leaving it open. So it's unlimited. And then also the document type, being peer-reviewed journal articles. When I did that, this 6,000 plus documents came down to 1,304. So out of the 1,304, I decided to put all of them together and do duplicate and abstract analysis. In fact, when I did the duplicate and abstract analysis, a lot of the documents went out, a lot of them. And they came down to 98. And even with the 98, I did a further comparison because some of the documents they have, because of the way they appeared in the documents, with their authors, the names and how they appear to differ a bit. For example, let me show you this. Like a name like this one, Lee Xingguan, it's possible you may find an article where they have changed the name to Xingguan Li. Okay, yeah, so I further look at the authors, I look at the articles, and when I did that, I was able to take away a lot of papers. So, the duplicate analysis, abstract and title analysis, when everything was done, I finally, in addition to the inclusion and exclusion criteria, which is made up of English and document type, source type, and all the other things that I discussed with you in the other video, I ended up getting 30 documents. So far, the documents I have are 30 documents. So these 30 documents, they are made up of a total of 19, total of 20 being a peer-reviewed journal articles. And then 10 of them are reports. These are very relevant reports I found to be important with respect to construction industry and ESG. Okay, there are 9. Sorry, there are 9. And then there was a thesis that was conducted. So that's it. So when I put them together, I decided to do some further analysis of that. So as you can see, the year of publication is here, the document type, literature type, and then what kind of research design is here. Quality assessment tool, what kind of quality assessment tool? Yes, so this is where I think many of you need to look at it again, here and there, here and this column H and column I. In column H, I have shown the research design. In other words, what type of study is that? Especially if you look at the methodology section. So some of the studies were experimental studies. Some of them were quantitative studies. Some of them were cross-sectional studies. Some of them were qualitative studies. Some of them were just, they are gray literature. In other words, like they come in the form of reports. Then some of the studies were literature review. Okay, so for each of the research designs, there is a way to assess them. And that is where I believe many of you don't have much idea about. I want to take my time to take you through. So far, what have I covered? I have covered, I don't want to waste too much time. I've covered eligibility criteria and set strategy. All these things I've explained them in the previous videos and all that. So by now, I'm hopeful you know. Then selection of source of evidence, okay, how to select the evidence, then, okay, we are not there yet. Data extraction. Yeah, data extraction, they did a quality assessment for the data extraction. I'll come there too. Okay, so we know the selection of evidence. We know set strategy, how to develop a set strategy. We know how to put together your eligibility criteria. And then the last part, the last but one part is that by now, you should have an idea about how to extract data. Okay, even if you don't have it, I'm going to take you through that. So let's go through, and that is actually after you are done with your section, that's where we will be going to. Okay, so how do you extract data? So when you're extracting data, I'll come to the quality assessment. I'm not forgetting. I'll come there. Just give me a minute, two. So when you are extracting data, you need to know the specific things that you want to extract. What do you want to extract? So if you look at my literature review papers and other authors, their literature review papers, they have specific things that they have presented. That's the results and discussion sessions, or the finding sessions, or the data analysis and discussion session. I don't know how they have captured it, whatever. Yeah, okay. So if you look at that session, you see that they have presented some things. Some of them come in a form of themes. Some of them come in a form of subtitles. Some of them come in a form of subsessions. So if you look at some of my papers, for example, you see that I've done something like author analysis. I've done like country analysis. I've done like annual publication analysis. I've done something like document source analysis. I've done something like citation analysis. So all these things, you can only present them when you have extracted relevant data, which can help you to present these things. Like, in other words, like if you don't have data, you can't present. And where are you going to get them? So you get the data from the papers that you have. So for example, if I want to extract something like the annual publication trend, if I come here, all I have to do is just check the year of publication. And based on the year of publication, I can easily put together the annual publication trend. In other words, I'll put all the publications that were done in 2023 together, 2021 together, 2022 together, 2020 together, 2019 together, 2018 together, and 2017, whatever, all that together. Just check some of my previous papers and you understand this. If I want to talk about even something like even research design, I can have something like Venn diagram, not Venn diagram, pie chart. I can present this thing in the form of a pie chart or bar chart, showing how many papers were experimental study papers, how many papers were quantitative studies, how many papers were cross-sectional studies, how many papers were qualitative studies, and so forth, and so forth. You get my point? Yeah, so that is what you can do. Is that fine? Okay, that's great. So the information that you need to present in your data results and analysis, results and discussions, any of them fine. You would take them from the relevant papers that you have. And by taking the information from the papers is what we term as data extraction. So data extraction is not anything. There are so many ways of extracting data. You can extract it manually, like what I've done, where you look at the papers, then you check, is it a journal article or it's a report? Then you write. Or there are also softwares that nowadays can help you to do some of these things. And some of them are embedded in something like NVivo and all that. NVivo and other data extraction methods. We have other ones too, so you can check them out. But at this stage, I think it will be better you do it manually so that you learn. Then in your subsequent papers, if you get opportunity to get a software that can help you to extract some of these data, that will also be good. Okay, so that's how to extract data. Now let me go on to the papers, because before you extract data, you need to establish the quality of the papers that you are using, whether these papers are good or not, because they have a way of informing or affecting the kind of results that you present. Yeah, because if a paper is not properly written, and then you extract data from it to write your work, it's possible you may not get the kind of results that you want. Okay, so there are so many ways of assessing the quality of the data, which in this context, the articles that you are using for your work. So we have so many of them. So one of them is what we call, we have so many. Okay, so we have an institution like JBI, and they have a checklist of doing this. Okay, before I come to the institutions of JBI, now let me go back and explain something to you so that you don't get confused. So first and foremost, what is quality assessment? That's the first question. So the first question is, what is quality assessment? That's the question that somebody will ask. So what is it? So quality assessment is a defining feature of systematic reviews, and it is seen as the process of critiquing, criticizing, appraising of the data, which the data in this context, the articles. It could also be not only articles, but let me use the word document, because article is a little bit confusing. Document or literature is better. Okay, of the included research evidence. So the way you go about appraising here is like you are trying to assess whether that paper is good enough for you to use it in your work, is what we call quality assessment. This fundamental review process is called by different names. So I want you to take note of this so that in case you see somewhere, you not think otherwise. So this quality assessment, the term quality assessment, other papers or other studies also call it risk of bias assessment. So in case you see, anytime you are reading any Prisma-backed literature review or any literature review, when you see words like risk of bias assessment in the methodology or in the work, or you see things like critical appraisal, you see assessment of study validity, you see assessment of methodological quality, you see assessment of methodological limitations. When you see all these words, they mean the same thing. They mean the same thing. It's not different. Yeah. There's nothing new under the sun, or it's not new from quality assessment. They are all saying the same thing. So others decide to use different they use it differently, but they do the same thing. They do the same work. So what is the purpose of this appraiser? The purpose of this appraiser is to assess the methodological conduct of a study. So why do we do the quality assessment? What's the essence? The purpose is to assess the methodological conduct of a study and to determine the extent to which a study has addressed the possibility or risk of bias in its design, conduct, or analysis. Okay, so a risk of design. The risk of design could be even the sample size. Maybe it's not significant enough. Because if you are conducting a study in a country like Ghana, and you are saying, or you said that your study includes everyone living in Ghana, If your study, everyone living in Ghana above the age of 18, that's what you have stated as your target population. And then you end up using only 15 people from Ghana as your sample. It's possible people will question your work. Unless maybe you rephrase your targeted population and say that, okay, I want only people who work in the Flagstaff house, or I want the pilot. I mean these people who are in charge of airplanes. Pilots who come and go, like I'm using Kotoka International Airport as an example. Pilots who come and go every Monday in Ghana, like pilots who bring airplanes to Ghana and then take people also back to wherever they are going to on Mondays, every Monday in Ghana. For that, if you are using a targeted population like that, it's possible you get few, because we all know, even though like, yeah, people travel a lot of planes here and there coming and go, but I mean, on a daily basis, I don't think you get something like even 100. I'm not so sure. 100, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure of 100 pilots. 100. I'm not so sure. In a day, I'm not talking about a week, a day. I'm not so sure. So for such a sample, if you, let's assume even they are 100, we get 100 planes with their crew and everything within a day, like 100 or 200 or 300. And out of that, you are selecting something like 15. Yeah, somehow, yeah, it's understandable. Yeah, it's understandable. Yeah. But if you are talking about something like people, Ghanaians above 18 years, Ghanaians above 18 years, if I'm not exaggerating, we are not less than 10 million. Above 18 years. Yeah, above 18 years. I don't think we are less than even 10 million. So if 10 million people, and you in your study, you have selected only 15 people to work with, to take data from, it's possible anybody can question you. Yeah, so these are some of the things that you have to look at. Okay. Yeah, and also if it was like a quantitative study, normally in quantitative studies, those of you who have done some regression in quantitative studies, like panel regression and all that, you understand this. You have to do you have to control. You have to control the bias. Normally we have control. So I think when I got to this point, or when I started doing this kind of quality assessment, and then I got to know what I used to do when I was doing my master's. I used to run a lot of panel regression, a lot, like with economic data. Yeah, then I understood that, oh, okay. So that's why we control for. Yeah, because there's a possibility of bias. Yeah, because if you are taking something like variables, like you are saying the determinants of economic growth in Ghana, then you only take something like foreign direct investment as the only variable. Oh, no, you are wrong. Okay, I will not say you are wrong, but I will say I want to use some statistical term. It's not like it's not right. It's not right. You need to add more variables. And if you are not adding more variables, even if you are using one variable, you need to control for it. Because it's not only foreign direct investment that determines the economic growth of Ghana. There are so many things. There are so many things. Yeah. And if you're also looking at it from the firm specific, which in the project management terms, we say the project level, organizational level, and the individual level. If you are looking at it from that even perspective, let's say you are undertaking you are undertaking a study where you are looking at it from the individual, which is this point is more of like the workers' point of view. You cannot say that the things that are affecting the construction workers are the only thing that affect them. There are a lot of things, which are some of them are even they are external from the projects that they are working on. Yeah. So yeah, it is very important you undertake the risk of bias assessment, which is also known as quality assessment, in order to check whether indeed the paper that you are using, yes. Yeah, so yeah, kind of. I think one of the reasons why maybe possibly in our field we don't use that is that medicine is more of like if you don't do the right thing, if people don't check up on you, you may come up with the wrong books, wrong drugs, wrong listen and go and give to people drink and they'll die. So sometimes I understand them why these things are done. But still, even though ours is not like that, but I think it still is important to do this stuff. Okay, let's keep going. So all papers selected for inclusion in a systematic review, those that met the inclusion eligibility criteria described in the protocol need to be subjected to rigorous appraisal by at least two independent reviewers. These two independent reviewers can be just only two people in a team, or it can also be that all the members in the team can be part of this, but at least two people. Why? Because when you check it, after you check it, I have to also check it and see that what you have done is correct, because it may be possible you may have scored them wrongly, and I'll come in and then correct them. I'll show you some of the scores very soon, because I've done that for the papers I've selected so far. The result of this appraisal can then be taken into consideration in the analysis, synthesis, and interpretation of the results within the systematic review. That's also one of the reasons why some people don't use it, because this appraiser, the results of the appraiser, you can take them into consideration. It's not compulsory. There's no compulsion. It's not compulsory to use the results of the appraiser for your systematic review, but it is important. And more importantly, when you are using Prisma, it's a requirement. So in most cases, the primary purpose of this assessment is to allow reviewers to answer the overreaching question of how well a study was designed and performed, rather than avoiding systematic errors and bias. Yeah, so that's it. So I think now you understand it, right? Okay, let me take you through some of them. So the various study designs or different study designs have different ways of appraising them, of doing the quality assessment with them. So when I take you back to the Excel sheet, if you are dealing with a systematic review paper, there is a way to check the quality of that paper. If you are dealing with a quasi-experimental study, there is a way to go about it. If you are, there's also the experimental study. If you are dealing with a purely quantitative study, there's a way to go about it. But the question is, what is this quantitative and what is this all that cross-sectional and all that? I would like to recommend this JBI website to you. For the sake of time, I can't take you through one by one, but I think you can do it yourself. So in JBI, for example, and not only JBI, I'll also take you through the CASP. In JBI, they have shown you the types of research designs. These are some of the research designs that we have. These are the common research designs. Economic evaluation, preliminary quantitative research, randomized systematic reviews, personal opinion. So just check the kind of research design that you have. And the kind of research design that you have, let me take you back to the JBI. The kind of research design that you have will influence the kind of critical appraiser, also called the quality assessment tool that you use to assess it. So if you are dealing with a qualitative study, there is a way so you can use JBI qualitative research checklist. But the question that somebody will ask is it only this company that is having this appraisal tool? The answer is no. There are so many qualitative research checklist tools, so many of them. Okay, so it's not only JBI. So JBI has one. We have the CASP, we have the grade, we have, and so there are many. I mean, there are many of them. There are many. You have a lot of them there. So you just Google. So just Google the research design, and then you look for the quality assessment tool. Any of them that you are comfortable with, you can use it. There's no law, there's no rule, there's no requirement that you have to use only JBI quality assessment tool for quantitative research. or for economic evaluation studies, or for diagnostic test accuracy studies, or for prevalence studies. No, there's no law like that. So when I take you here, I'm going to do this kind of generic. There is even someone who has written a whole paper on it, review paper, and the person has done a critical or presented a critical list. Yes, a critical, I think it will be this one. Yeah, if I'm not wrong. Yes, a critical list of all the quality assessment tools that we have. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so I think this paper will help. But if in case you don't get what you are looking for, you just I'm just going to show you one. Just let me show you one so that I think from there you can move on. If I take something like because he has done something like a list. I want the list. The list will help. That's very good. Yeah, you have done a list and the companies and organizations that have the quality assessment tools and case studies and all that. Okay, so this is one of them. So this is CASP. CASP is also another organization. So you can check for the cohort studies. Maybe not this study, but I saw one study, maybe later on you can check it yourself, where they have listed. So if you take something like qualitative study, the study has listed so many qualitative study quality assessment tools from different organizations that you can choose from. Yeah. So just use any of them that you are comfortable with. Okay, let me keep on going. Okay, so I have that, and so what next? So the next thing is to do the actual. I'm going to take only one or two. So for the gray literature, okay, I'm just going to take one or two then because I can't do all for the sake of time. The rest you can do it. So you can see the quality assessment tools here. So let me take one or two and move on. So let's say if we take something like cross-sectional, what is a cross-sectional study? Cross-sectional studies are normally survey questionnaire studies. And you take the views about the responses of participants from different angles. So yeah, but all these tools, they have explained each of the designs, so you can take your time and read them. But let me take one or two for the sake of time, because as I said, we don't have that time. So if I take something like the CASP, which are used for the cross-sectional study, so these are the studies that are identified, as you can see. Okay, so the critical appraisal of qualitative studies within the CASP, using CASP, I think I should have CASP or using CASP. And what is CASP? CASP is critical appraiser, something program. Critical appraiser. CASP. Yeah, critical appraiser skills program. So they are all in the form of questionnaire. All these tools that I have mentioned to you, they come in a form of questionnaire. They come in a form of questionnaire. They come in a form of questionnaire. So where is the that's what I use for it. Yeah, I've done something wrong. So let me go back to what I did. I think there's something I'm getting wrong here. For cross-sectional studies, not qualitative studies. Very wrong. It's cross-sectional. Yes, there's a cross-sectional studies that I use CASP. So systematic. Oh. Ah, those such elastic designs using CASP. Yes. So that's it. This one. So this one. And the question is, what is the checklist? What are the questionnaires? So I'm going to show you the questionnaires. Maybe qualitative study. Oh, you keep on, the two of them keep mixing up. Sorry, but let me take the qualitative study. It seems there's a mix-up. Yeah, I think so. There is something. Yeah, so this is the qualitative studies for from CASP. From CASP. So these are the questions. So come in the form of questions, and each of the questions so come in the form of 10 questions. And these 10 questions, once you are able to answer them, it will tell you whether a paper that you are trying to use in your study is important or it's not. And each of the questions, they have explanation, they have a detailed explanations as to what they mean. So one of them, if you are taking any of the qualitative study, it will ask you, was there a clear statement of the aims of this research? So if you take a paper and you are looking at the paper, you read through, you read a full text. So let me show you one paper. So let's assume you are trying to read a paper like this. This is an article. I'm taking a journal article. Trying to read a journal article like this full article. And when you go through this article from the top to the bottom, this article, you must be able to identify the main aim or the objective or the research question or the research hypothesis in this study. If you are not able to find that, then I'm sorry. Then maybe the paper may not be a good paper. Kind of. But even that, you cannot, even if you can't find it, you can't judge it because it is based on 10. Yeah, it is based on 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10 questions. Okay. So for example, with this, one of the studies I identify as relevant, when I scored it, this one has yes, yes, yes. But when it comes to was the recruitment strategy appropriate to the aims of the research, it's not clear. So I made it unclear. Some of them too, you can say no if it is not there. So once you are done, all the yes, you put them together, and that will become your score. The question, you do the same thing for all the other ones. It's over 10. So the question is, which one do you take as important? Okay, so when you get to this point, there's no need for you to remove anything, unless maybe throughout the question or when you look at all the questions, that paper, you were not able to get even one answer or one yes for any of the papers or any of the article that you are looking at. If it happens that way, then I will suggest that you take it out. Now, that paper is totally irrelevant to what you are doing. But if I am able to identify one or two, yes, it's okay. Just that it is strongly encouraged. It's strongly encouraged. And because it is strongly encouraged, some authors even say that if a paper falls below a certain threshold, that paper should be taken out. It's strongly encouraged that the paper should score higher, at least 50% or 60% or 70% based on the threshold that you have set for yourself. So if it is, for example, it is something like, let's say 30% and above, then it means all these articles have met that criteria. If it is 50% and above, then some of the articles here may not, like this article will not. If it is 70% and above, some of the articles here may not. That's how you score them. Then you do the same thing for the gray literature. When it comes to the gray literature too, the gray literature, and then the other forms of study designs, you do the same. So thematic review is based on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, also 10. Yes. And then we have what we call gray literature. The gray literature is based on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But one thing with this gray literature thing is that there are other explanations to these questions. I've put a question marks there. A question mark. Yeah. So you have to answer them. And once you are trying to answer them, in case you get them yes, 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 then it's good to go. But if not, this link is not okay. In case you are not trying to find it, you just search for ACOS checklist for appraising literature. Just Google this, and then when you click on it, it will open it for you. If you don't see it, just come down. Oh, it's not there. Okay, sorry. The link is not working well. Click on this link. Okay, this link is working. Okay, so this is how it comes. So it comes in the form of just like trying to put it together. Just that is more of like yes, no, unclear, unsure, and other comments. Yeah, sometimes you can also provide some comments on the papers if it's possible that you have to do that. Okay, I think that I'm okay, and I've been able to take you through the most important thing with respect to the extraction. When it comes to the analysis, we will apply either it's possible we may apply it depends, because I don't want to. Okay, so if you were able to get what I said, I think by now you should know, unless you have a question. If you have a question, please reach out to me. I'll explain it to you. Okay, because as I've always been saying, I'm developing you so that you can apply some of these things to your own research in the future. Trying to help you out. Okay, so that's it. So this is for the gray literature based on 6. So most of them score high. That's good. And then yeah, so I think that is all. Is there something I've missed? Let me go back to the manuscript. Yeah, data synthesization. Okay. So here, meta statistics and content. Yeah, so kind of. It's possible ours will also be the same, meta statistics and content analysis. Yeah, we may do that because when it comes to things like something like if you're looking at something like the citation analysis and all that is we have to present in a statistical form. Yeah, then also the content analysis, which will lead to we getting the teams. Yeah. So yeah, we'll get to this point. We'll get to this one. But now, but for now, kindly concentrate on the sections I've given to the two of you, the two groups. Please make sure you do that. So now the methodology section is done. Yes, I've finished it because I really want to show exactly what I've done. Because there's even another thing too that I have included in this theoretical process. Let me show it to you. That's the one. The strategy manuscript. Okay, this one. Okay, so this also needs some form of modification. Okay, so it needs some form. So this also needs some form of modification. Yeah, so actually this is the Prisma flow chart. And this is based on the 2020, the updated 2020 Prisma flow chart. Yeah, so I think yeah, we are good to go. We are good to go. And if you have a question, please get back to me. This is very relevant. Okay. Yeah, don't be afraid of me. The fact that I've given you an assignment and the fact that I'm on you doesn't mean that you have to be afraid. Yeah, if you have a question, come back to me. Come back to me, okay? Yeah. Okay. So I wish you all the best and I hope to see you soon. So this is also I want because once I'm done, now that we are done, not once we are done, now that we are done with this kind of search and all that, and the papers to include in that I know I have to put this one also out there. I need to do some speed modifications here. So as you can see from this diagram, you can see the where the documents were taken from, screening was done, and if possible, we got some papers from outside, we added them, studies imported into, this one is just somebody's paper. And then the ones that we excluded, then we applied eligibility criteria, which in this context, the inclusion and exclusion criteria. And what is that? So it depends. Somebody can write studies included. Some also say studies excluded. Any of them is the same. But anyway, what papers did we actually included in this study? So this is what we have to report in this context now for 30. It's possible we may remain 30, or when we start doing the data analysis, it's possible we may take some out. Any of them is fine. Okay, so I think I am okay. In case somebody has a question, if you have a question, then you can come back to me and ask me. But until then, have a good one and God bless you. Bye.